colleagues, dear friends, and dear guests, I would like to welcome you all to the first event organized by our newly established platform, Küresel Çalışmalar platform. So we are really happy today since this is the beginning of a series of events that will be hosted by our platform in coming days. And also we have a distinguished guest with us, Dr. Fatima. So just let me explain the main vision and the aims of our platform, and then I will leave the stage to Dr. Fatima. So the idea of establishing such a platform actually is a long-standing one. We have been thinking of it. However, we have just realized the establishment of it in March 2018 with my friends Hakan Mehmetçik, Gökhan Katıtaş and Ferit Berder from the department. The main aim of our platform is to deal with the epistemological issues, the methodological, theoretical, and epistemological issues of the discipline of international relations as it is studied in Turkey. Because we believe that Turkey's young researchers, IR researchers, do not have any problem in accessing data or producing data or collecting data, but rather they face with strong problems in analyzing this data. So this is our departing point. We wanted to create such a platform to transfer the theoretical and methodological experience of senior IR scholars to younger generation of IR scholars in Turkey. This is the pragmatic version, the pragmatic aspect of our platform. But there is also another, a more theoretical and broader aspect of our platform. This comes from the global IR school of thought. We try to locate this new platform into the evolving school of IR thought, which is called as global international relations, propounded by scholars like Barry Buzan, Amitav Acharya, Andrew Harrell, and Tim Dunn. They basically try to broaden the limits of international relations and go beyond the Western-centric or Eurocentric conceptualizations of international relations and try to globalize the discipline. So we, as the founders of Küresel Çalışmalar platform, we try to lay the groundwork for more meaningful contributions to this school of thought from Turkey. And last but not least, I would like to recommend you to have a look at our website, küreselçalışmalar.com, and please do share your comments, your suggestions, and your criticisms with us so that we can improve it. And keep with us, we will continue to have more interesting events in the future. And just let me introduce you Dr. Fatima, and then I will leave the stage to her. Dr. Fatima is a lecturer at University of Montreal, right? And Polytechnic. Okay, Montreal and Polytechnic, a consultant and an independent researcher. He holds a PhD in business administration with a focus on China and Japan. He specializes in cross-cultural management, international affairs, strategy, and organizational behavior. Her focus is on the various sociology, politics, economics, and history, and she uses aspects of all these disciplines to study Asia. She previously served as a corporate strategist, management consultant, and strategy and business development consultant in several companies. She provides training for business executives at the international level and regularly gives presentations about Asia's geopolitics and its business management and culture. She is the recipient of several honors and author of book chapters on China and Japan, several articles, and other 20 business case studies. So, stage is yours, please.
Okay, thank you. So, merhaba. I would like to thank you first of all for the invitation. It's greatly appreciated. And I would like to thank you as well for being here to listen to me on such a sunny day. Because believe me, if you were in Canada and we had such sunny day, everyone will be outside. Seriously. First of all, I would like just to let you know two things. If you hear me speak in another language, just stop me. Okay. Because I tend to switch from a language to another without paying attention. So my apologies in advance if I do so. And in my presentation, there are some graphs and some tables in French. I did not have time to translate it. I put them just to illustrate what I have to say, but I hope so it's okay with you.
Okay.
Okay? So let's start with the presentation. So my presentation is on how to study China. I will start with a warning. It means that the current presentation, yes, it's about China, but it's beyond China. What I have to say, if you're interested in studying another country, you can apply what I have to say and adapt what you have to adapt. Something else as well, this presentation is based on my personal experience as a PhD student, when I was a PhD student. So some of you will relate to it and will remember, for example, oh yes, I'm living this, or I've lived this, I've experienced this. And it's a mix of talk on methodology, on tips, on personal thoughts, on how to study China. Okay? The first thing, when you're interested in studying China, you will see that in many books, when you read books on China, you will hear that all the theories that you've learned in business school, in faculties, in political science, when you come to apply them to China, they won't work. So it's the first thing that you gotta keep in mind, that you need to adapt them or you need to forget them, because it's something else. The West, the theories were developed in the West, in Western countries for Western theories, okay? But when you have to come to China, China is a word in itself, so it's completely different. So when you try to apply a Western theory, if it doesn't work, don't try to push yourself to apply it, try to find something else. The first thing as a PhD student that comes to mind is what I call the quest for the Holy Grail, namely the research question. I don't know for Turkey, but in Canada what we have is whenever you meet someone, oh, you're doing a PhD, what is your research question? In my case, it took me months before finding my research question because I didn't know. I was interested in China, in Japan, but I didn't know what will be my research question. I've read books, until I had my hallelujah moment. Yes, this is my research question. Is China the new Japan? So it was good, it took months, but finally I got it. So if you're living this situation, don't despair, you will have your own hallelujah moments. Then, another question that comes to mind is, which research methodology to use? The same thing in North America in general, faculties and directors push toward quantitative. It seems that the quantitative is more scientific, it's more objective, and people push toward this. My tip for you, it depends on your research question and it depends what you want to look for. Okay, don't let yourself push toward this if your research question does not involve an answer like this, or if you feel that it's not for you. Not everyone likes statistics, okay? And when you're studying a country, for example, not every data you have goes with statistics. In my case, it was easy. The nature of my research question was qualitative, so I went with qualitative. And then there is another challenge because, okay, I have the qualitative research, but then which approach again? I've read books and books and books, and my head was about to explode. What to do with books? Okay, which approach? I have case studies, grounded theory, phenomenology, everything. I was really puzzled. Till I had what I call a small victory. I will use the comparative historical analysis. Great! I'm comparing two countries. In my case, China and Japan. So it's the best one. So back to basis. Usually when we compare countries, the purpose of comparative historical analysis is to describe and examine events of the past because we need to understand the past. We need to learn about it to understand the present and then to anticipate potential events, the future. Okay? In the case of China, for example, if you are interested in studying One Belt, One Road initiative, it's something in the present. If you say, okay, the past doesn't interest me, it's the One Belt, One Road initiative that interests me, no. Because in the past you need to understand the old Silk roads, you need to understand understand the humiliation that China got with the Opium Wars, you need to understand the political system and how it evolved in China to understand why they are doing their One Belt, One Road initiative. Okay? And then, of course, when you study the One Belt, One Road initiative as an example, it gives a depth to your analysis. It's like, I would say China is like an onion. If you scratch the surface, you will stay only on the surface. But if you dig deeper, we will go to the real things. And of course, anticipating future events, that's the important thing. Otherwise, we'll stay always in the present and we don't have an added value. Okay? So let's start by examining the past for China. And here, I will start a little bit the methodology section. I have the comparative historical analysis. I'm comparing two countries, China and Japan, since the creation of Japan in 500 BC till nowadays. And what's important when you are comparing two countries, whether Turkey and China, for example, you're going to answer the questions why and hows. Why? Zhang, he's a researcher. He has done an extensive research over, I think, 840 papers, published papers on Asia. And what struck him, that's important that researchers compare, okay, but they forget to answer these questions. Why there are similarities or why there are differences and how? So the first thing when you're comparing countries, for example, don't forget to answer these two questions. It's important. Then when you read about the comparative historical analysis, it keeps coming, use the Weberian methodology, use the Weberian methodology. Like every student, I read about the Weberian methodology. What is it? Okay? And I came up with these things. It says that it's an explanatory perspective. What it means is that there is no one final explanation. It means that if I take, for example, the economical perspective, I will have an explanation. If I take the cultural perspective, I will have the cultural explanation. So we have different explanations depending on the perspective we use. Then, what we find as well, it's the causal relationship. It means that the focus is not on historical facts, but it's on relations between them. And historical facts, we call them antecedents, and it's what's become social change. And social change have 5 stages. And when we would like to measure social changes, we call this ideal type. I see you. I was like this. Okay. It's this, it's this, it's that. But where is the methodology? There is no methodology. That's the bad news for me, because I'm a pragmatic person. My first bachelor degree is engineering, so I needed something really structured. I was waiting for something to tell me a recipe, do this and do that, and you will have your research. And I couldn't find a thing. It's like they gave us all the parameters of an equation, but they didn't provide us the equation. So what I did, I went back to Aristotle, philosophy. Okay? I said, okay, the problem, no methodology. And there have been a lot of criticism over the past century towards Weber, because there is no methodology. I knew the modalities is that he has been influenced by Kant, and I knew about his theories. I know that in terms of causality, he rejects one single explanation, as I told you later. So the purpose for me is I should find this methodology, and that's what I did. I took the only book that Weber has written and published while he's alive. The other books that he has published, it was after his death. Okay? It's The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. And as I'm an engineer, I did a reverse engineering. I studied a lot to recover the epistemological foundation of the Weberian method and to exhibit in detail what is this famous method that everyone is talking about, but we couldn't find everywhere. And I came up with a 7-step methodology. So this is the one, and I'll start with the first one. The first one is when you are studying a country or 2 countries or how many as many as you want, you have to do a general reading. It's what I call the exploratory stage. Read, read, read. You're interested in Turkey and China, read about Turkey, read about China, without discrimination. Read whatever comes your way. The second thing is, one day something will strike your mind. I'm interested in energy. I'm interested in security. I'm interested in, I don't know, okay? So now you have a problem and you will try to have an idea, okay, what is this problem? And you start selecting your bibliographic sources. And in this one, it's very important to choose from all fields. Don't limit yourself to political science or to international relations or to economics, for example. Read from all things. Politics, philosophy, sociology, religion, anthropology, history, economy, all fields, whatever comes your way. So, for example, you're interested in security, read things on security, but how it is seen through the political perspective, how is it seen from sociology, from economy, governance, etc. This will broaden your mind and will give you ideas on how it's studied through different fields. Okay? Important thing for China. China, once again, you need to understand the society, you need to understand the philosophical doctrines, you need to understand religions, you need to understand the history before starting whatever you're starting. Otherwise, you're gonna be just lost. Then you choose the research question. You find your research question, and in some cases you have many sub-questions. It depends on your topic. For now, from step 1 to 4, this is all known. You can find this in methodology books. Okay? Starting step 5, this is Weber. And Weber starts with what we call fictitious analog. Fictitious analog is a graph like this one that illustrates how the reading are structures in the mind. Okay? And we add, of course, time and space. So, for example, you read a book on China, you do all the historical facts, and you do, okay, it happened in China, here in Japan, here with Korea, and you add it. So it's a way to visualize what you are reading. If you are a visual person, it's perfect, okay? And this will help you when you will come to analyze at the end in your thesis, whether it's master or PhD, it will help you analyze stuff. Then there is the ideal type. The ideal type, it's a benchmark to measure social changes. We have 5 stages, and we will see exactly what is it. For example, we have a social group. This is the initial level. In a social group, we have ethics, they have ethics, and they have their personal interests. Then it's normal, it's routinized. And then sometimes within the group, there will be a split. There will be difference that will be born. And some people will start questioning the legitimacy of the whole, the majority. And if it happens and it succeeds, we will have an achievement, it's clear. So this is a cycle. It's always a cycle. I see you looking at me and saying, okay, what is it exactly? I'll give you an example from Turkish domestic politics. I won't comment on them, and it's not the purpose at all. For example, the first level, Mr. Erdogan became president, Turkish president, right? He started applying his policies, it became a routine. We know that Mr. Erdogan and the AKP, if I remember correctly, belong to the conservative group, right? But what happened lately, it's within the conservative group, there has been a split. The E party, if I remember, it's Action F, right? So in here, what happened after that? Mr. Erdogan announced the upcoming election. The fifth stage is the day when we will have results. We'll see if we remain in the same cycle or if we'll start a new cycle. I hope it's clear, the analogy. So I applied the same thing for Chinese history. You know, there has been many dynasties in China, the Qin, Han, Sui, Tang, etc. And I've observed that there is a pattern that when you, this is my ideal tip, it keeps repeating itself. First thing, wars and competition between principalities, so wars here. Then one dynasty wins, okay. And usually they use the legalist ideology, it's a philosophical doctrine. And then what happens? There will be a shift between legalism and Confucianism, another philosophical doctrine. And then the emperor becomes an autocrat, and the court will interfere in the state matter, and the fall starts. And it's a new cycle. So you keep repeating it, and you will see that it happens all the time. I did the same thing for Japan. And the seventh step is the cultural explanatory perspective. So I took the cultural one because it was easy to find already stuff that has been done. Hofstede and Bond, I don't know if you know about Hofstede. He talked about the cultural dimensions. And with Bond, they, through well-known research, the Confucian connection in 1988, they showed that Confucianism is still in use within the Chinese and Japanese society. So it's something that I had already done and given and prepared by Hofstede and Bond. I used as well the Weber's theory on the modern state. If you don't know this theory, it's worth knowing and it's up to date, and you may use it to China. It applies very well, so you may use it. And with it, I came up with a partial answer to my research question: what is it within? Is it China, the new Japan, or no? So this finished the history. Once we know history and we master it, this is the first basis when you're studying China. Now we would like to understand the present. And to understand the present, we have two things. We have literature review, of course, and something different this time, it's live, because events are happening every day. And we may have interviews. For example, if you go to China, or if you stay here but you interview people, there are some stuff that you gotta keep in mind. Following contemporary world events. What I mean by this, two things, is, okay, I'm interested in China, don't focus only on China. Focus on everything. Everything what's happening everywhere, you gotta be up to date. Because what happens in the States may impact directly or indirectly China, and vice versa. Okay? For example, Trump with Kim Jong-un, okay, it's between North Korea and the US, but it will impact China as well. So we gotta be aware of what's happening. The second thing, if you speak many languages, read things, articles, papers, newspapers, whatever, read them in different languages to have different perspective. Because an analysis on, for example, French perspective, it's completely different from the American ones. Okay? This is very important. So read the Chinese, read the Turkish, read the French, and you will see that the same event is explained differently. The second thing is when you are having interviews with people. Interviews, especially when you are in China, let's say you go to China or you're dealing here with Chinese people and you want to have interviews with them. There are stuff that you gotta keep in mind. Beside in methodology book, they show you how to conduct interviews, how to do them, etc. I would like to emphasize some points. Sometimes you're having your interview, but people won't allow note-taking. So note-taking, no. You gotta be prepared. What is my plan B, my plan C, my plan D? Okay? Because if you're just counting on taking your notes, it may not work. You say, okay, my plan B is recording. I have my phone, I will record. Some people will say, no, we don't want to be recorded. So you got to be prepared as well. What happens as well with the interviews, you have interviews, people tell you very valuable information, but they tell you, don't write it. Don't talk about it in your thesis or in your article. And you gotta respect this. It happened to me a lot. I've had meetings with high-ranked people in China and Beijing, but I couldn't say a thing. I knew, but I couldn't say. And whenever I write an article or something, I gotta check and recheck, just in case I say something that I shouldn't say.
Why? What were their hesitations in general?
They have access. They have access to very, let's say, information that they cannot be disclosed. They can disclose to you, but they don't want to be known because they may know who told you this information. This is something that happened to me, and I was like, I've met a general in the army, Chinese army. I've met people from the Chinese Communist Party. I've had information that I couldn't say a thing. Not even to my director. I gotta respect their wishes. And something as well, people give you information, give you interview, and 1 month later or 1 week later, they change their mind. Oh, please, don't use the information that I told you. This is something that happened to me as well. And you gotta be prepared. And another thing is that some people will refuse to meet you. Usually in books, in methodology, they tell you, okay, you can say, for example, 10% of people that you contacted did not answer back. But in the case of China, try to understand why they refused. Why? Are they all Chinese? Are there I don't know, foreigners? What do they do? Why? Explain this silence, because this silence is a sign of something, and you cannot ignore it. Other things with regards to interviews, online censorship. In China, it's Big Brother is watching you, as you know, and Western social media networks are not allowed. So even when you use their own social media networks, you have double meaning. They write using double meaning. So you think this is what they meant, but there is a double meaning. And if you're not a Chinese, you won't understand the double meaning. Fear to talk. A lot of people fear to talk. But what's interesting in China, when mainly I conducted my interviews in English. So when they are speaking, they tell you, okay, I cannot say, you feel it. But when I had my interviews in Arabic, in French, and in Spanish, people felt at ease. And even in public, oh yeah, no problem. No one here speaks Arabic or no one here speaks Spanish, so no problem, and they could talk without problem. So for example, in your case, Turkish, probably no one speaks Turkish there, so you will have this thing that is really interesting. The knowledge of the language. Before going to China, I've spent 1 year learning Chinese, Mandarin. Not the writing, just the speaking. And usually I'm gifted with when it comes to languages, and so I arrived in Shanghai, and the first shock I realized that people understand my 谢谢, which means thank you, and 你好, which means hello. Otherwise they couldn't understand me and I couldn't understand them. So that's the first thing. So even if you think, oh, it's been 2 years that you've been studying Chinese, etc., the knowledge of the Chinese language is difficult. Mastering it is difficult. And what's interesting as well is one day I was in Beijing and I was watching TV news. I couldn't understand nothing, but just in the hotel room, just sitting. And the guy was speaking a lot, He was explaining some stuff, I couldn't catch it, but 5 minutes and 2 or 3 sentences, there is a problem. I've asked that and asked and asked, and the interpreter refused. So I don't know why he refused. Did he understand what he was saying and he didn't know English enough to explain it to me, or he refused to tell me what is it? So it's something that happens. I went as well to some businesses and talked with people, and we were like this in a meeting room, and some people started talking to me at ease and explaining stuff, and you will have the colleague saying, don't say such stuff. She doesn't need to know such stuff. So this is something you will face as well. Cultural clashes as well. Before going to China or before dealing with a Chinese in here, you need to know what I call international business etiquette. It's very important to avoid misunderstanding. Just for the case, for example, I compare China and Japan. In the case when you're dealing with a Japanese, if you see him like this, eye to eye, it's considered, oh my gosh, she's aggressive. For a Canadian, for example, if he doesn't look your way, you say, oh my gosh, he has something to hide. So you can understand such things. The limits of your memory. Remember I told you, sometimes it happens that you cannot take notes, you cannot record. So even once you finish your interview and you sit down and you start remembering, okay, he said this, he said that, he said that, there are limits to your memory. Sometimes 2 or 3 days later, oh yes, he said this, and I wrote it down. What I found out after a couple of interviews like this is when I feel that the person is telling me something important, I take my phone and the note section, and I will tell him, just 1 second please, and I write a sentence or I write a keyword just to remind me. So this is something that you got to keep in mind. And as well, propaganda. Especially when I met with high-ranking people, they all had their red book and showing it to me and walking and telling me, we are the good one, we are the best, we are doing stuff. And you got to pay attention. Okay, this is propaganda. They are not telling to me really what they think. They are just chanting what they want to tell me. Okay, so be aware of such stuff. Once you finished your literature review, everything, so you have data, and more data. What to do with all this data? Categories, structure. Usually I used an Excel file, and I had categories: economics, politics, society, governance. I had many categories, and I had codes for facts, opinion, and biases, just to make sure. And whenever I read something, I put my stuff in my Excel file. Whenever I had an interview, the same thing. I put it in this. It's a little bit like this, okay? And I had information about this, and once I have all the categories, everything is done, I start my analysis. And the analysis, I try to have the context. We are in the present, okay, we're analyzing the present, but use the past. Don't forget the past. We try to find the root causes, and usually we find them in the past. And we try to evaluate the consequences as well. You try to make links, because you had maybe 10, 15 interviews, you've read over 200 papers, 20 books, whatever. You're going to connect the dots. And this may take a couple of months just to make sure that everything is okay. And once it's done and your analysis, you see, okay, there's nothing new that can come up, you start visualizing your contribution. I'm a visual person, so I need to